What's going on, guys? Aaron Guyette here with the Living Fit Show, and I get the incredible pleasure of talking to Kelly Matthews. So, Kelly Matthews, she's sort of been a bit of a rising star in our other user content that we have shared, and I think obviously that is because she is a rising star herself using social media, specifically Instagram, but other social media avenues as well, as a way to kind of get a message across to people, not only of what obviously she can do and how awesome she looks doing it, but that, humans have this potential that they don't realize that they have, that they can actually be athletes, even if they were never athletes. And so I have the great pleasure of talking with Kelly Matthews, who moved from Boston to Austin. And there's a dad joke in there somewhere. So we will skip the dad joke because that's usually what I do. And she's, trained at Equinox. Now she runs online training. She does virtual, in-person, kind of live stream in-person stuff. But without further ado, Kelly Matthews, what got you in, or can I just call you Kelly, or should I just call you Kel?
You may call me Kelly for sure. You don't have to do the full name.
Mrs. Miss, what
Ms.
got you into, Ms. What got you into fitness? What was the thing that attracted you there?
So I definitely was super active as a kid growing up. I played sports. I ended up settling on soccer around high school and played soccer in college. So I always obviously like really enjoyed play and I enjoyed sport a lot. I would say what got me into strength training in particular was my sophomore year in college. I just sort of started taking a vested interest in strength training in the off season and seeing that translate to performance during season. Um, and I also felt like I was good at it, which felt really good. And so I felt myself getting stronger and just getting better at everything. And that was sort of addicting to me in a way. And so as time went on in college, I kind of got more and more into it. And then when I graduated and I was looking at applying for office jobs and doing the things that I thought that I was supposed to be doing at that age, and I went to school for communication, so I didn't have any like formal training in fitness. So I just decided to get my personal training certification and went out on a limb a little bit and took my first training job, and then the rest was history from there.
Nice. So, can we together help dispel this myth that is, if you train legs, that your endurance in soccer or in sport is going to suffer tremendously? Can we help dispel this? Did that happen to you, or did that not happen to you?
It's funny because I think that some of that is like your programming, and I was really lucky to have a really awesome strength and conditioning coach in college. Starting our sophomore year, our freshman year, we had the football coach, or the football strength and conditioning coach, that trained us all like football players, and that wasn't ideal.
Nice.
But she had a really good understanding of that, like when you're in season and you're playing. I mean, we were practicing, 5 days a week, playing games 2 days a week, and yeah, you're just running so much all the time. So there is a limit to how much you can really be like heavy lifting during that time. But
Yeah.
the difference that I saw from really consistently like training legs and just strength training in general during the off season for injury prevention, and I got faster, I got stronger, and my endurance didn't suffer at all. So we can definitely put that myth to
Yeah.
rest, I think.
All right. It's now to bed.
Yeah.
I have that conversation. So I'm in the Marine Corps Reserves now, and I have that conversation every single time I train Marines, and they find out that I've done some sort of coaching or whatever. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, so I don't train legs so I can run faster and run longer. And I'm like, well, you're an idiot. So no, I obviously don't. The cool part is I can actually approach Marines that way, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't usually even approach Marines that way. I'm like, well, you may want to, do a
Well,
little
it's
bit of
interesting
legs, a
too, like,
little bit of strength
it's those moments you realize how, like, I think when you've been working, in the fitness industry for a while, it feels like that's a really obvious thing, but I have a lot of moments like that with new clients where they're like, "Well, I don't do any type of leg stuff because I run or I cycle, and, like, that makes my
training.
legs stronger." And I'm always like,
Yeah,
"Does it? Are you sure about
yeah, yeah.
that?"
You're like, yeah, like what is like stronger in that they can do more of that activity? Yes.
Right.
You
Exactly.
may lay down some more muscle fiber. Maybe they might get a little bit bigger, but let me show you this thing called a squat and a deadlift. Yeah, and let's see if your biking improves.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I just love the, you know, so obviously before these interviews or whatever, we ask people like what they do, how they do it, why they do it, even if we know that, and then definitely if we don't know that. And I love your why, and I want to sit on that. I want to talk about that because I think it's so important for any human, regardless of your age, to realize that humans were made to move. Like that is like this is why we have the body that we have. This is why we have the brain that we have. Even right, the brain helps us move, and then the movement helps our brain. It's this great symbiotic relationship if you can think of those two things as like separate things or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's your whole idea of making athletes out of people that don't think of themselves as athletes. So I don't know if you have like maybe an anecdotal story of a particular client in mind or kind of a general synopsis of like how that tends to happen or whatever. But yeah, walk us through, how you present that and then how that gets to be a part of the programming or training that you present.
Yeah. So I think I definitely have a lot of anecdotal stories about clients that I've worked with personally. I think the overarching theme that I found in working with people that maybe didn't grow up playing sports or they haven't played sports in a really long time or they've never lifted, they've never, whatever the background might be, where they don't consider themselves an athletic person. And that's always so interesting to me because, like you said, we're meant to do this. No matter how your body is built, it's still built to move and it's still built to progress and get better. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And it's just amazing for me to see. It's like my favorite when people ask me, what's your favorite type of client? And my answer is always the client that's willing to do it. And because it doesn't matter. Yeah, it would be really cool to work with elite athletes. Yeah, that's great. And their natural abilities are unbelievable, right? But when you can work with someone who doesn't feel like that about themselves and they haven't trained and they don't have maybe that sort of given ability, to see them go from not being confident with their own body, not having body awareness, not yeah, just any of that confidence with movement to being able to do some of these things that they never thought they would be able to do is always my favorite thing. And clients do it all the time because I'll tell them to pick up the weight to do something, or I'll tell, and they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure. You need to be sure too because you can do way more than you think you can do. You're just like not really giving yourself enough credit for what your body can do."
Yeah, I love the, zero training age, right? Or training age zero because there's just so much that happens in the first couple of weeks, in the first couple of
Mhm.
months, especially if they are coachable, like you said. I mean, obviously if they come in with a bad attitude and they're not coachable and they're telling you to, where to go and that client sucks, whether they're an elite athlete or
Yeah.
not.
Right.
But yeah, as long as they're coachable, man, it's amazing to watch, especially with training age zero, because basically there's like so much unfulfilled potential. Because look, your body was made to move. now you're actually moving it. Watch how cool this is,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Is obviously, you have a penchant for strength. Um, uh, I'm guessing that your programming is going to probably have a penchant for strength. But you said something in the very beginning, after my sort of like soft intro or whatever, of you getting into fitness. You talked about play. And so, people that tend to have a penchant for strength, especially in the strength and conditioning world specifically, forget about this thing that is play. I mean, the play comes in the sport, but everything is business. Even the play part of the sport is business, right? But that's a
Right.
huge component that's missing in most humans' lives, especially once we hit our adult years. We get to be 20 years old, and then like you said, we have to get this office job, or we have to get this whatever, and then play goes out the window, if it was even there to begin with, in high school or prior
Right.
to that. Most likely, most people are losing play, because they're trying to become like Insta famous, or TikTok famous or whatever by the time they're like 11. So I'm guessing that play goes out the window, unless they're seeing the TikTok as play, which would be awesome. But
Yeah.
oftentimes it's like, oh, I want to get likes or this and that, and then it's not play, it's something else. So yeah, define to me, or explain to me, if you incorporate play still, how do you incorporate play? What does that look like? Why is that? Why was that something that you specifically hit on in the beginning?
I think play is so important for everyone, especially in terms of motivation might not be the right word, but it's the only one that I can bring up right now.
Like
uh
engagement.
yeah, and just and feeling like real connection to your body in like uh an organic way, I guess, where you're not necessarily taking, and this kind of comes into play with a lot of what your coaches do, which is like a lot of fun flow and stuff like that, where you're not necessarily planning out to a T everything that you're going to do. Animal flow does a ton of this too, but it might just be like getting out and kicking a soccer ball with your friend, or throwing a baseball, or like doing something that like, and a lot of people don't do that. I mean, I have met a lot of friends that I don't think have, like thrown a ball in a long time or kicked a ball, because they just don't really think to do it. And I'm sort
Yeah.
of rediscovering like sport play. When I moved here, I started playing soccer again. Just like pick up with a bunch of guys, but it's awesome, and it's like knocks me on my ass every single time. I get exhausted, but
Right.
I'll be playing. I play twice a week, and usually it goes for like 2.5 hours. And I finish, it's like, yeah, I'm tired, but I don't look at that being like, oh my God, like, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. It's just, it goes by really fast, and I end up getting my butt kicked, and it's great. And I think if you can have something like that, and I feel that way with kettlebells, sometimes a lift feels like a slog, and that it is what it is. And then other days it's just like it flows and it's really fun, and you have those moments where you realize this is the reason why you do these things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And not to even mention the social emotional connection, right? That's happening with those guys that you're, playing pickup soccer with or whatever. When there's more than, it's not just individual play, but it's play with people.
Yeah,
We
community. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Community connection there. Not to mention the myriad or cornucopia, if you will, of benefits that you get physiologically,
Yeah.
but psychologically and socially. Yeah, so good. Yeah, I love it. I make sure I make it a point to add it in, because I am that like good guy that's like, oh, you know, I just got to do this and I got to do that and I got my checklist and I'm linear and yeah, and then it's like how great I feel after I roll, jujitsu, or I did the same thing. I played soccer with a bunch of Marines. We did a pickup game. 20 minutes in, I was like crushing it, just running everywhere. And then 20 minutes in, like
Yeah.
totally died. I was like,
Yeah,
can I
your
play
body's like,
keeper?
"What is this?" Yeah. I couldn't, I
Yeah.
literally couldn't, because I had to take a good break from soccer after playing for a really long time.
Yeah.
And then I started
Makes
kind of
sense.
dipping my toe back in Boston. And then when I got here, there's literally like 2 blocks from where I live is where we played pickup futsal. And I went the first night and had so much fun, like the most fun I've had in a while, like moving, And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I don't think I can get out of bed. Like I couldn't move my body at all. It was horrifying. It was the most sore I've been in so long. I was like, I can't remember the last time like my pelvic floor was sore. Like that's the level of soreness I
Right?
was feeling.
Oh yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and then you weren't like, I don't ever want to do that again. You're like, let's do it again.
Yeah. I went back on Wednesday. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your training. So obviously you've done a bunch of like one-on-one, and I don't know if you did small group or classes or anything like that when you were working your first job, but now, and probably some of this is COVID, I'm guessing, COVID driven. You kind of talk us through how it is that you do training now and how it's kind of morphed into something that's different, and what that looks like a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I worked at a corporate gym for 6 years and change. And I trained exclusively in person. And it's funny to think now because I never saw that changing at the time. It always just felt like training is training and this is how you do it. And then
Yep. Yep.
COVID hit and the gym shut down. And I immediately, just as a lot of trainers did, just pivoted towards virtual. Um, and I kind of was just thinking, let's see how this goes. I don't know if people are going to like it. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if it's going to work logistically. Let's just figure it out. But what I learned quickly was that people, especially at that time when we were in full lockdown, and I know it was different in different parts of the country, but in Boston, it was full on like you go out in the street and it feels like the apocalypse. Like nobody was out, nobody was leaving their houses, apartments, whatever. And so
Yeah.
what I found was that people really wanted to move. They missed working out a lot and they were home with like their kids and their family and they're not moving their bodies and they're working all day from home and trying to manage all of this stuff. It was like super stressful for everybody. So as soon as I asked, people were like, yes, 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 I want to train virtually. And it ended up being a pretty smooth transition overall. It kind of, we just figured out the equipment that people had on hand. People tried to get a little bit more equipment, which was an adventure. But yeah, and now, I mean, all but two of my virtual clients now are clients from Boston, that were long-term clients training in person that transitioned to virtual, and now we've carried that on, and it's been really nice because it's a little connection back to home that I didn't have to relinquish all of my training relationships from home, and I get to see them a couple times a week. So that takes up a chunk of my business. And then the social media stuff really, I started to ramp that up a lot during COVID and just sort of made the decision to start pumping out more content. My friend Dre, who we used to work together, you guys have worked with him too. We used to work together at Equinox, and we were kind of just chatting, and he was like, "Yeah, I just started posting a lot more content. This is what I'm doing. I think if you did it, it would work for you." And I really wanted to start. The thing with training for me has always been, what's the limit here? I only have so many hours in the day. I don't want to be online programming 10 hours a day. I don't want to be virtual training 10 hours a day. I don't want to do that. So how do I scale this in a way where I can do work and get paid for it after the fact? And at the time, the
Yeah.
answer was, well, let's grow a social media following and start to do some programs that I could sell on a website. So that's kind of the route that I went, and it's been interesting. I'm a woman operation right now. I haven't had a ton of help other than my friend that's a graphic designer help me with designing some stuff. But other than that, it's just been kind of touch and go, seeing how I can improve as time goes on.
So what platform do you put the workouts on? Is it just through just a basic website, or is there a special platform in that or whatever?
S- So that would be a direction that I would love to go as I explore more options. Right now, it's a PDF document that's laid out
Oh,
probably
okay.
how your like programs for yourself would be laid
Yep.
out, and then I have a YouTube exercise library that
Yep.
I just continuously add to. And then I have 3 programs on my website now, and I've been putting videos into like a playlist on YouTube so people can just go in, and those are all the exercises. It's a little clunky, I have to say. I am really proud of the programs. I think I'm really proud of them. I would love to start to streamline a more user friendly type of way to do it. Um, I'm just still kind of exploring what that might look like, because the idea of jumping from that to an app or something like that feels like a big jump in
Yeah.
terms of overhead costs and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. But what's been the feedback? Obviously, you got great feedback, great retention on your in person. But yeah, so what's been the feedback so far with the PDFs and with the movement library and all that stuff? Because that's still a full package. They're still getting you, and they're still getting your programming. So that's not, even if it might be clunkier than you would want, or maybe even than they would want. It's still a full program. So, what's been the
Yeah,
feedback?
I've gotten all positive feedback from the programs. I'll get questions about certain things, just like layout. And I think most of that comes from maybe people that aren't used to those types of documents and like the way they're laid out and the way they're supposed to be performed. So those are
Yep.
things that I've sort of edited as time has gone on too. But overall, it's been really positive, and I've had a lot of people say, "I've done the program 3 times through now. Are you gonna come out with another one?" Or like, which that's always really, like, cool to hear because
Yep.
they must be getting something really positive out of it if they wanna repeat it. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, so far the feedback's been really good, which is nice.
Yeah. That is. I love that. And the funny part is, you could, at least this has been my experience and observation in doing a lot of these, like, pre-written, pre-recorded, programs, whatever, whether it's through PDF or through an app of some sort or whatnot, or a database, or there's a million different ways to skin that cat, so to speak. But
Yeah.
but what I have found is, oh, like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite it because this was like the complaint that I heard, and then I rewrite it, and then I get another complaint that wanted it the other way. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
god! So it's totally like music, right? You're gonna choose, you're gonna select this music. Not everybody's gonna like it. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll just be confident with, this is the way that I do it, and I'll explain for the people that
Yeah.
don't understand that or whatever. Yeah, no,
Exactly.
that is, yeah, that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so so what have you found that has been like the most engaging, if you will, to get people to go from your social media into your program, or what's the most engaging for you on social media that has been helpful in this?
That's a really great question, and I don't know if I have a full understanding of what exactly people want, and that's the ultimate question when it comes to growing an audience on social media, right? It's like, how can you tap into the vein of what people are looking for and what people are consuming right
Yeah.
now? And I really do try to be as honest and informational as possible. And I find that people relate to that. And I think being relatable really helps in terms of people wanting to consume more of your stuff because I don't know, I think it makes them feel like they actually know that you're being authentic and that you want to help them, and that, like, I'm pretty honest about my own strength journey, and, my own body issues and my own whatever it might be. And I think that is what's made me feel most connected with people, because they give me sort of similar feedback. And when I say something and they say, I feel the same way, or it's so great to hear you say that, I feel that way, or I've been trying to work on my pull up for years and I've never been able to do it, and I just tried this drill that you put on here, and now I just did my first pull up, which is like, that's the coolest shit ever. So I,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's like a magic pill that like is what brings people in to actually buy programs, but I hope that it's a combination of sort of all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's to be able to be your authentic self, share your story, just immediately makes you a person, a human, right? As opposed to this cyborg or this machine or this like, or this corporate entity or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, that people, it seems as if people are tending to go away from that and go toward the more accessible, more authentic, human, even if they're phenoms, right? Just incredibly strong and incredibly good looking, all these things. It's like, hey, but they're, I'm not perfect. I'm human. Here's where I struggle. Here's my stuff. Here's where what I find funny. Here's
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But just being open. Yeah, I think that goes a long way, especially if you're getting much of your client from social media, right?
Yeah. And I
So
think I think
go
people
ahead.
are hopefully starting to realize that, like, because you do the exercises that the person is doing on their Instagram does not mean you're going to look like that person, or that that person is necessarily even being totally upfront about the things that they do, whether
Yeah.
that's workout or non-workout, in the age of, social media and plastic surgery and all
Oh
that
yeah.
fun stuff. But I do think that we're sort of moving towards, and it's fun to see a bunch of creators that I like really respect and really like, and to see their audience grow and see people consuming more of their stuff that's really real and just good information, rather than kind of taking the Instagram bait.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So we Marcus and I talked about that, and I think we're publishing that conversation that we had on our Living Fit show specifically about, and we talked about all those things like plastic surgery or doing steroids or whatever. It's like, hey, you could do that as long as you say it, as long as you're upfront with it. But
Totally.
if you're not going to say it and you're going to be like, all you got to do is this and then look at this, it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like gearing the end user, the person that's looking to some sort of influence or some sort of person to get a program. Okay, how can you be a little bit more calibrated in your approach so you don't get totally swashbuckled, if you will, right,
Yeah.
by somebody who's got like a big huge fake butt and a big huge like all this stuff saying all you got to do is these hip hinges this way and
Yeah.
then you'll
All
get
you need is
this.
this way.
Right. So I wanted to talk a bit about kettlebells because obviously Living Fit is a part of Kettlebell Kings, or we are connected, and we've showcased your content on both Kettlebell Kings and on Living Fit. And just in case people are wondering, I mean, obviously we're almost 30 minutes into this, and you're probably like, so where do I find her information? You just check it out, Kelly L. Matthews, right? But you heard her
Yeah.
name, so I'm sure you probably looked it up on the Google machine or whatever it was, so you probably already found it, if you were wondering. But just in case you don't know, yeah, Kelly L. Matthews on Instagram, that's where you're going to get a bunch of her stuff and then be able to, is it Linktree, is that what you use, or link, some sort of link to get into your content on your bio or
I just have
swipe ups?
my website. I just have my website
Yep.
up there. It's pretty simple, and yeah, all the programs are on there. Everything you need to
Nice.
find. Yeah.
So you have we talked about you having a penchant for strength, but obviously you also really like kettlebells, and that's probably what attracted us to you. And then we're like, hey, let's showcase this because she looks good, she's doing it good, she's she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. Let's share this. So far, I haven't seen any like crazy inauthentic things, right? Which is obviously what we look forward to, like just like you were saying, and then I restated. But yeah, so kettlebells. Why kettlebells? What brought you into the kettlebell world? Why do you like them? What brings you joy with the kettlebell?
My kettlebell journey started, Jason Brown does his certification, and
Yeah.
he worked with Equinox. I don't know if he still does that or not, for a long time, but with his kettlebell certifications, and that was offered to us as education as trainers there. So the first, I always used kettlebells sort of as another tool, right? It was just kind of like a, oh, this is basically a dumbbell, but whatever. And I probably did some really
So you
shitty
thought.
kettlebell swings, you know. And then I
Just
took,
shoulder raises and curls all day with.
yeah, exactly. And then I took that first certification, and I just really loved it. It was super simple. It was the basics. It was your swing, clean, front squat, overhead press, I want to say, was what we covered in the first cert. And even
Yeah.
just that, something about it, just I felt very drawn to it, and it's super fun to look back on like the stuff that I was doing at that time and just trying to, and it truly was play. It was horrendous to look at, horrible. Uh, but I have like old
Yeah.
videos of myself, like trying new things with it, and I think I just felt like, oh, here's this door that has just opened to all of these things that I can do with this tool that you would be hard pressed to be able to do with another tool. Um, I just thought it was super versatile. It was fun. Like I've sort of gone through different phases. Like I followed, I did a functional patterns thing for a little while, like one of their online, I don't know if it's a certification or a workshop or whatever, and they do a ton of like really funky stuff with kettlebells, and I don't really do very much anymore, but that was sort of a branch that I explored. But that's sort of the fun thing about it, and you and I discussed this before we got on, just the idea of being super dogmatic when it comes to kettlebells, and I am not a coach
Yeah.
right now that is very dogmatic about it. I think you obviously want to be the best you can be, and like nail down your form, but I also think you should kind of just take what you like from different schools of thought and apply that to your own body and your own movement. And I don't think any tool should be looked at as this is the one way that you can use this that's right.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I don't know, I know I just went off on a big tangent, but
No, that
I
I
hope that
love it.
answered your
Yeah,
question.
we talk about that all the time. Like if you're a hammer, then everything becomes a nail, even if it's not a nail. And so, yeah, even in our courses, we're like, hey, go check out other courses, go check out other certifications, go get more information. I mean, that's how the human learns, anyways, right? It's like
Right.
you try attempt something, fail. Oh, now I failed forward so many times that now I'm able to do it. Okay, it's really hard. Now it's getting easier. Okay, now I want to learn something else, and then same process, right? Ad
Yeah.
nauseum, right, or ad infinitum, whichever way you want to approach that or have that perspective. But that's to me like I love learning, so I love to find do new courses, do new informational things as well as learn new techniques and things like that. Because yeah, in fitness, I mean, the body only moves a certain amount of ways, but in those certain amount of ways, there is so much that can be learned about how to do that and how to make results happen and things like that. So yeah, we love that you love kettlebells. And we love that you did those funky failure weird things in the beginning, because without those, like, you wouldn't, same with me. Like, I slammed the crap out of my wrist the first 1,000 times I cleaned a kettlebell.
Oh,
I couldn't be as cool and as smooth as Marcus was his first time. No, I'm sure he, banged himself up and did all sorts of weird
yeah,
things.
you have to.
It's
It's like it's always so funny answering that question because that's like a very common question. Is people are like, my wrist always hurts, my forearm always hurts whenever I do kettlebells, and my honest answer is it's gonna hurt at first. You're not Nobody's gonna pick up a kettlebell and do a perfect clean or a perfect snatch the first time. You're probably gonna bang your forearm. I'll try and
yeah.
help you not bang your forearm anymore, but like it happens. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. When I went to Marcus's course, he taught some training wheels that I wish I would have had where I wouldn't have destroyed, because I'm like a
Yeah.
glutton for punishment anyway. So I was like, whatever, pain is pain. Like, bah, like, but and then you teach clients that it's like, nah, maybe there's a better way,
Yeah.
right?
Well, having
But
a good coach obviously is it's very valuable when
huge,
it comes to
yeah,
starting stuff like
yeah.
that, for sure.
Yeah, and clearly, Kelly is a great coach. So if you're watching, if you haven't already gotten off of this and checked her out, you need to stop right now. Go check her out. Go check out Kelly L. Matthews on Instagram. Let that take you to her website. Check out her. She does actual in person. Are you available for that anymore? Or is that sold out? Or
In-person sessions
yeah, like the
or
live
virtuals?
stream virtual. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, actually do have an option on my website right now that is sort of an intro session. And one thing that I noticed before I am able to bridge the gap between where I'm at and where I would like to be going with my online programs. I noticed that there were a lot of people reaching out saying, I really want to do one of your programs, but I've never really done any kettlebell training before, or I've never really, which I never want someone to dive in head first to doing kettlebell skills without ever having any instruction,
It's like lift
because they'll
that with
end,
your back in a twisting, jerking motion.
yeah, and they'll end up
No,
like
don't
you
do that.
probably with banged up forearms. But so I do have an option where you can do like a 30 to 40-minute intro session and either work on, like one thing that you really want to focus on, or get a little overview of the basics, and then obviously you have the option to do as many of those as you want to help kind of soak up the information. But yeah, I'm a little bit selective about the virtual work that I take.
As you should
But it
be. As you should be.
but I am still taking people sort of on a case by case basis a little bit, and I've been having a lot of fun doing. I have a few people that I'm doing online program, like custom online programming and virtual training with, kind of simultaneously, and that's been really fun. So those are kind of the clients I'm taking right now. But yeah, I mean, I have all my contact information, and if you ever have any questions, it's all available on my website. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kelly, so before we finish, we ask this of all of our guests in all of our interviews, and it's, what's this idea or what's this concept of living fit to you? And obviously, living.fit is our brand and kind of our company, but beyond that, it's this idea of living fit. And had I've heard so many different answers, but we want to ask you that same question and end with that. So, what is living fit to you?
Living fit to me, I think the idea of living fit, we all use fit in sort of
Right.
different ways, is, I wish I could give you like a good sound bite right now, but I really do think of it as fitting movement into your life in a way that makes you feel good. And I think it looks different for everybody, but I think it's not necessarily the pursuit of being fit, right? It's
Hmm.
uh the work that you put on a day-to-day basis that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, or that you played that day, or that I think that fitness should be a means to improving your life in whatever way
I
you
love it.
want it to, I guess. I don't know.
No, I love it because it's this emotional and physiological and psychological, because maybe movement, right, is going to make your joints feel better or whatever, and so then your body feels better, you feel better. But then
Right.
also maybe just being able to accomplish something like you said and get better at something makes you feel better because you feel more confident, you are doing something. I mean, it run so it can run the gamut. So I like that approach. It's not, it's not about, and I think oftentimes what gets sort of lost in translation, or shouted maybe louder in the fitness industry, is this idea of aesthetics only, or only strength, or only endurance, or like only body fat loss,
Yeah.
or only muscle gain, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yes,
Right.
we
And
can
like
do those things, but
yeah, and like what fitness looks like, or what fit looks like.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that it looks different on everybody.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the cool thing about like kettlebells, especially. You look at like kettlebell competitors and stuff, and it's like all different. Same with powerlifting, anything else. You look at it, and it's like everybody is of all shapes and sizes, and they're making that kettlebell look light. And they're, you know what I mean? It's not just because somebody is super toned or looks really good doesn't necessarily make them fitter or healthier than the person next to them.
So you said kettlebell competitor. Are you talking about kettlebell sport?
Yes.
Oh dang! So we're gonna have to reconvene and do a whole new interview, because
I
I mean
mean,
that's all these things. That's all kettlebell sport. My wife did this
really
little background for me, so I appreciate her
showing off all your accomplishments.
showing off all
No,
these things.
it's yeah. I like kettlebell sport is fascinating to me, and I've sort of taken a focus in hardstyle, and I really like want to continue to do that. But I'm fascinated by kettlebell sport, and it's something that I want to get into eventually. And I've talked
Oh snap!
to Jason about that before, and the idea of like being less dogmatic and more making the kettlebell work for your body. And uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot in sport that's fascinating to watch, like different people's forms and the way that they do it. It's yeah, we could I'm sure we could go on for a long time about it.
Oh yeah. We'll dive in, and then we'll do a bunch of connections with some of the kettlebell sport peeps that I know and have had the great joy of like just being friends with and whatnot. I think, yeah, they would love to work with you. And if you want to get into it, let's do this. So
I'm
next one,
down.
guys, next one, Kelly and I, we're going to talk kettlebell sport. We're going to blow it up. Maybe, maybe it'll be like right after her first competition or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for tuning in, guys. This is the Living Fit Show. This is Kelly Matthews. You can find her at Kelly L. Matthews on the Instagram, and we will see you on the inside.